"Stop," said my son-in-law when I rushed home to save my own house. He knew everything, every single thing. That one word froze me in my tracks, not because of what he said, but because of how he said it. Calm, steady, and almost commanding. I had spent the entire drive home trembling, picturing my house in flames, my life collapsing. But when I burst through the front door ready to fight, he stood there, eyes cold, saying, "Stop." Tell me, would you stop if someone else told you to stand still while your entire world burned down in front of you? Because I didn't, or at least I didn't plan to until I realized he knew something I didn't, something that changed everything. It all started 3 months ago when my husband, Mark, passed away. We'd been married for 32 years. I thought we had a strong marriage, built on trust and family. But when he died, he left behind more than just grief. He left confusion, secrets, and a house tangled in legal chaos. My husband had always handled the finances, the mortgage, insurance, taxes, all of it. I trusted him blindly. After his funeral, I found myself surrounded by papers I didn't understand. That's when I realized our house, my home for over 3 decades, wasn't even in my name. Somehow, without me knowing, Mark had changed the deed years ago. I didn't know why or when. The only other name on that paper was my daughter's husband, my son-in-law, Kevin. At first, I thought it was a mistake, a clerical error, a missing signature, something we could fix. But the lawyer looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Ma'am, legally, this property belongs to Mr. Kevin Sanders." I laughed, I actually laughed, because it sounded insane. Why would my husband give ownership of our house to our son-in-law? Kevin was barely part of the family. He was polite, charming on the surface, but something about him always felt rehearsed. I never trusted that smile. Still, my daughter Emily adored him. She said I was being paranoid. "Mom, Kevin's been helping Dad with finances for years," she said. "You're just stressed, but stress doesn't change property deeds. Stress doesn't hand over your home to someone else." I started digging. I went through every document, every email, every bank record I could find, and the deeper I looked, the darker it got. There were wire transfers, big ones, from our joint account to some business registered under Kevin's name. When I asked Emily about it, she brushed it off. "Kevin helped Dad with investments," she said. "It's all part of his business consulting." I wanted to believe her, but my gut screamed otherwise. Then, one night, I got a call from an unknown number. A man's voice said, "Mrs. Cooper, your house isn't safe." I froze. "Who is this?" I asked, but he hung up. I called back no answer. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely dial 911, but I didn't. Instead, I went straight to my daughter's house. When I got there, Kevin was outside, talking quietly on the phone. When he saw me, he quickly hung up and smiled. "Mom, what a surprise," he said, pretending everything was fine. But I saw something in his eyes that chilled me of fear. The next morning, I called the county office and asked to review the property deed history. They emailed me a file that made my stomach drop. 2 years ago, when Mark was in the hospital after his heart surgery, he signed over half the property to Kevin. A month later, the rest of it transferred completely. The signature matched, but I knew my husband's handwriting, and that wasn't it. Someone had forged it. My husband may have been naive, but he wasn't stupid. There was no world where he'd hand over our home to Kevin. I went to Emily's house again, this time furious. "Do you know what your husband did?" I shouted as soon as she opened the door. She looked shocked, but Kevin appeared behind her, calm as ever. "Mrs. Cooper," he said smoothly, "I think you're confused. Your husband and I had a business arrangement. The house was collateral for a loan, nothing more. Collateral. For what loan? I didn't even know Mark owed money." Kevin's smirk told me he enjoyed watching my confusion. "If you don't believe me, check the records," he added. "Everything's legal." I did, and technically he was right. On paper, everything was legal. A loan document existed, signed, notarized, and dated. It claimed Mark borrowed $400,000 from Kevin's company for emergency medical expenses. It was all so perfectly orchestrated that even a court might buy it. But there was one problem. The hospital bills only totaled $120,000. Where did the rest of the money go? That night, I tore through every box in my attic, desperate for answers. That's when I found an old, dusty USB drive labeled for Mary. My heart pounded as I plugged it into my laptop. It contained one folder, a recording. My husband's voice filled the room. "If you're hearing this," he said, "then I failed to fix what Kevin started. He's not who he says he is. He's been blackmailing me using photos, fake evidence, threats against Emily. I signed the house over to keep her safe. Please forgive me." I covered my mouth and sobbed. My husband wasn't careless. He was protecting our daughter. The next day, I confronted Kevin with the recording. I expected fear, guilt, maybe even an apology. But he just smiled and said, "That won't hold up in court. There's no proof it's real." I wanted to slap him. Emily stood beside him, torn. "Mom, please stop. You're making things worse," she said, tears in her eyes. But Kevin gently placed a hand on her shoulder and said, "It's okay, honey. Your mom's just grieving." That was it. That's when I decided I wouldn't let this man destroy what was left of my family. Weeks passed. Kevin started construction on my property, claiming he was adding value before selling it. He even put the house on the market without telling me. I was still living there, and he listed it online. When I confronted him, he told me coldly, "You're welcome to stay here until the sale closes. After that, you'll need to find somewhere else." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That's when I decided to fight back. So that's the situation I was in, a widow, betrayed by her own son-in-law, about to lose her home because of a fake loan and a forged signature. And I had one recording, one piece of proof that no one believed. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you fight back, even if everyone thought you were crazy? Or would you walk away to keep peace in the family? All right, here's what I did. I started recording everything, every conversation, every threat, every smug comment. I even pretended to give up to make Kevin think he'd won. I told Emily I was moving in with my sister, but in reality, I set up cameras in my own home. I needed evidence, undeniable, legal evidence, that Kevin was manipulating everything. For 2 weeks, I waited. Then one night, I got it. Kevin walked in with a man I didn't recognize. Through the camera, I heard him say, "Once we sell this place, split the money and move it offshore, the old lady won't even know what hit her." That was it. That was my proof. I took the footage straight to my lawyer, who finally agreed to help. We presented everything, the fake loan, the forged deed, and the recorded confession, to the authorities. But Kevin was smart. By the time the investigation began, he had already started moving money, deleting files, and covering tracks. Days later, I got a call from Emily. "Mom, what did you do?" she cried. "The police came to the house. Kevin's furious." My heart sank. "Emily, listen to me. He's been lying to us. He used Dad, and he's using you too." She hung up. 2 days later, I got another call from my neighbor. "Mary, there's smoke coming from your house," she yelled. I dropped everything and drove faster than I ever had. My heart pounded with every turn, terrified that Kevin had done something desperate. When I reached the street, I saw it, smoke rising from the backyard. I jumped out of my car and ran toward the door, but just as I reached it, Kevin's voice boomed behind me, "Stop." I turned, and there he was standing with Emily, holding his phone up like he'd been waiting for me. "Don't go in," he said. "You'll ruin everything." I screamed, "What did you do?" He didn't answer. He just looked at me calmly and said, "The fire department's already on the way. You'll thank me later." Thank him. For what? I tried to push past him, but he blocked me. That's when I saw the truth. There wasn't a fire in the house. The smoke was coming from a pile of burning papers in the yard. The documents, the forged deeds, everything. He was destroying evidence, but then he made a mistake. The wind shifted, and a spark flew onto the porch. Within seconds, the old dry wood caught fire. His calm expression vanished as the flames spread. Emily screamed, "Kevin, do something." He panicked, grabbing a hose, but it was too late. The fire spread fast. I pulled Emily back as the house, my home, burned in front of us. Kevin tried to control it, shouting orders, but by the time firefighters arrived, half the house was gone. In the aftermath, the investigators discovered something Kevin didn't plan for: the melted remains of his hard drive buried in the backyard. It contained all the transaction records linking him to fraud, identity theft, and forged documents. Turns out my husband wasn't the only person Kevin had conned. He had a history: fake investments, stolen identities, embezzled funds. Once the evidence surfaced, everything unraveled fast. Kevin was arrested. Emily was shattered. She couldn't believe the man she loved had done all of it. She stayed with me for weeks, barely speaking. One night she finally said, "Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't believe you." I hugged her and said, "You wanted to believe the man you loved. That's not your fault." Months later, after the investigation, the court restored the property to my name. The insurance covered part of the damage, and I rebuilt what I could. The house looks different now, emptier, quieter, but it's mine again. My husband's voice still echoes in my head sometimes, that recording I'll never delete. Please forgive me. I do forgive him. He did what he thought would protect our daughter. As for Kevin, he's in prison now. I never went to his trial. I didn't need to see him again. Emily filed for divorce and started therapy. Slowly, our relationship began to heal. I realized that sometimes people you love will trust the wrong person, and all you can do is hold on to the truth until it finally comes to light. I still drive past the old neighborhood sometimes and see the rebuilt version of my home. It reminds me of everything I lost, but also everything I regained. I learned that silence can be deadly, but standing up, even when no one believes you, can change everything. So tell me, was I wrong to fight back? Should I have just let it go and moved on? Or did I do what any mother, any wife, would have done to protect what was hers? Like this video if you were on my side. Subscribe for more stories like this, and share your final thoughts about this whole mess in the comments below. I'll see you all in the next story.